Welcome back to another episode of Digital Pulse. Today, we're diving into something that's been on your mind lately, ransomware. You've been wanting to move past the typical headlines, right, and really grasp this threat. And you've shared a fascinating book chapter from Cyber Extortion, a comprehensive guide to ransomware. That seems perfect for the job.
It's definitely more in-depth than your average news article. We can really get into the nuts and bolts, how these attacks work, the impact they have, and what you can actually do to protect yourself.
Exactly. So first things first, what exactly is ransomware? It sounds kind of like a sci-fi movie villain.
It might sound futuristic, but it's a very real threat. It's not just locking you out of your computer. It's about taking your most valuable data hostage. Using encryption. Think of it like this. Imagine your entire photo library, all your financial records, that novel you've been working on, all scrambled into unreadable gibberish. And modern encryption is so powerful that trying to break it yourself is almost impossible.
Okay, so my data is basically kidnapped. And I've heard terms like locker ransomware and crypto ransomware. What's the difference?
Good question. There are actually a few different types of ransomware, each with its own nasty twist. Locker ransomware is like the old blue screen of death on steroids. It completely locks you out of your computer, making it unusable until you pay the ransom. Crypto ransomware is more targeted. It encrypts specific files, like documents, photos, and spreadsheets, often with a ticking clock to pressure you into paying.
And then there's that one that sounds especially terrifying, doxware. It's not just about locking up my files, it's the threat of having my secrets spilled.
Right. Exactly. Doxware, also known as leakware, is all about exploiting your fear of exposure. They threaten to release sensitive information, person photos, financial data, anything they can get their hands on, unless you pay. It's digital blackmail at its worst. And then there's double extortion ransomware, which adds another layer of pressure. They not only encrypt your data, but also steal it. So even if you have backups, they can still threaten to leak your information, leaving you in a very difficult position.
All of this sounds incredibly unsettling. So how does this stuff even get onto our systems in the first place?
The book chapter you shared delves into that, outlining the various ways these digital bad guys can weasel their way in. And believe it or not, the most common culprit is still phishing emails.
I always thought I was pretty good at spotting those. But I actually fell for one recently. It looked exactly like an email from my bank, saying there was an issue with my account. I almost clicked the link before I noticed a couple of red flags.
That's precisely what they're banking on. They prey on human nature, our trust, our curiosity, our tendency to react quickly without thinking. And they're getting so sophisticated that even the most tech-savvy people can get fooled.
So phishing aside, what are some other ways ransomware can sneak onto my computer?
Well, outdated software is a major vulnerability. Remember the WannaCry attack a few years back? Yeah. It exploited a flaw in Windows that had a patch available for months. But many people hadn't updated their systems, leaving them wide open to attack.
Yes, the classic ignore software updates move. I'm definitely guilty of that from time to time.
It's kind of like washing your hands for your computer. It may seem like a small thing, but those updates are essential for plugging security holes and preventing a whole lot of trouble.
Okay, point taken. No more ignoring those update reminders. But what about those of us who work remotely? Does that increase the risk?
It can if you're not careful. Think of a remote desktop protocol, or RDP. It allows you to control your work computer from home, but if it's not properly secured, it's like leaving a secret door unlocked in your house. A perfect entry point for attackers. And of course, there's always the risk of downloading something malicious. That free software or game might come with a hidden cost, so stick to trusted sources.
So it seems there are a lot of ways this ransomware can get in. Let's shift gears and talk about what we can actually do to protect ourselves.
Absolutely. The good news is that prevention is far more effective and less stressful than dealing with an attack after it happens. And the foundation of a good prevention strategy is backups.
Okay, backups. We've all heard it before. But isn't that more for businesses? My photos are precious to me, but they're not exactly corporate secrets.
Your photos, your documents, your creative projects, they're all valuable to you, and that's what matters. The logic applies whether you're a multinational corporation or just someone who doesn't want to lose their digital memories. The 3-2-1 rule is a good guideline to follow here.
The 3-2-1 rule.
Exactly. 3 copies of your data, 2 different types of media like an external hard drive, A&D cloud storage, and 1 copy kept offline. That offline backup is key because many ransomware variants will specifically target connected backups.
So if ransomware hits my computer A&D, my external drive, I'm out of luck unless I have that offline copy.
Precisely. It's like having an escape pod on a spaceship. You hope you never need it, but you're sure glad it's there if things go south. Along with backups, we've got software updates. Those are non-negotiable now. But what else can we do to bolster our defenses?
Well, we talked about those phishing emails. Being able to spot those seems pretty crucial.
Training and awareness are huge. In fact, how about a little pop quiz? Give me a classic phishing email scenario and let's see if I can sniff it out.
Oh, I like this. Game on. Okay, let's say you get an email from what looks like your favorite online store. It says there's been a problem with your recent order and you need to click a link to update your payment information. What are your spidey senses telling you?
Definitely some alarm bells ringing. First, I'd never click a link directly from an email like that. I go to the store's website myself by typing in the address I know is correct, and then I check my order history there. Chances are there's no problem at all, and this was just a phishing attempt.
You passed with flying colors. Consider yourself officially phishing resistant. So beyond training, what about those antivirus and anti-ransomware tools we hear so much about? Do they actually work?
They definitely add an extra layer of defense, but it's important to understand they're not foolproof. New ransomware variants are constantly emerging, and attackers are clever at finding ways to slip past security measures. Think of these tools like a good security system for your house. It might deter some burglars, but a determined one might still find a way in.
So it's all about layers, not relying on just one thing.
Exactly. For businesses, network security also plays a major role. Things like segmentation, which is like compartmentalizing a ship to prevent a leak from flooding the whole thing. And firewalls can help contain the damage if ransomware does get in. But for individuals, the basics we've talked about, backups, updates, awareness, those are your frontline defenses.
All right, so let's say, despite our best efforts, the worst happens and we get hit with ransomware. What should our first move be?
First things first, don't panic. Easier said than done, I know. But having a plan helps. The key is to act quickly to contain the damage, much like you'd try to contain a spill before it spreads everywhere.
So disconnect from the internet, unplug any external drives, damage control mode activated. What then?
You need to figure out what you're dealing with. What type of ransomware is it? Knowing this might point to possible decryption tools that are available. Then, assess the damage. Which files are affected? Was any data stolen? This is where those backups we talked about become your best friend.
You've definitely hammered home the importance of backups.
Restoring from backups is usually the most reliable way to recover your data without giving in to the attacker's demands. But there's also the option of decryption tools. Some cybersecurity researchers and firms create these for common strains of ransomware, making it possible to unlock your files without paying.
That's amazing. So there's hope, even if you do get hit. But I have to ask, what about the option of paying the ransom? Is that ever the right move?
This is where things get complicated. There's no easy answer. On one hand, paying the ransom directly funds criminal activity and may not even guarantee you'll get your data back.
And it could even make you a target for future attacks.
Exactly. However, for some, the pressure is immense. Imagine a hospital hit with ransomware. Their entire system is locked up. Patient records, medical equipment, everything. They have to weigh the potential cost of lives against taking a moral stand. It's a heartbreaking dilemma with no easy solutions. There have been cases where organizations paid the ransom only to find that decryption keys didn't work or they were hit again shortly after.
Wow. So even if you pay, there's no guarantee they'll keep their word. It really underscores the ruthlessness of these attackers.
Absolutely. And it's a good reminder that prevention is the best medicine. It's much easier to take steps to protect yourself up front than to deal with the fallout of an attack.
That's a great point. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
The most important takeaway is that you have more power than you think to prevent these attacks. Strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, regular backups. These aren't just tech buzzwords. They're your digital armor. And staying informed about the latest threats, like those clever phishing schemes, is half the battle.
Knowledge is power, as they say. You know, as I was reading through this book chapter, it really struck me that there's a significant psychological impact to ransomware that often gets overlooked. The book focuses heavily on the technical aspects, but what about the emotional fallout of an attack? It's like a digital home invasion. You lose control of your own data, you feel violated, and there's the constant anxiety of not knowing what might be exposed.
Exactly. It's a traumatic experience, and the emotional scars can run deep.
Yeah.
We often focus on the financial costs and the technical challenges, but the psychological impact is just as real. Imagine the stress of trying to recover your files, the shame of potentially having sensitive information leaked, the fear of being targeted again.
It's heartbreaking, and I think it highlights an important point. These attackers aren't just exploiting vulnerabilities in our technology, they're exploiting vulnerabilities in our human nature.
That's a brilliant insight. They're playing on our fears, our anxieties, our sense of urgency. It's psychological manipulation as much as it is a technological attack.
So given the very real psychological impact, what can we do to be more resilient, not just in terms of our technology, but also in terms of our mindset?
That's a great question. I think it starts with awareness. The more we understand how these attacks work, the less likely we are to fall prey to them. We need to educate ourselves about the latest threats, practice good digital hygiene, and be cautious about what we click on and download.
What about those who have already been victims of ransomware? What advice would you give them?
First and foremost, know that you're not alone. These attacks are more common than people realize, and there's no shame in falling victim. Reach out for support from friends, family, or professional organizations. There are resources available to help you recover both technically and emotionally.
I think it's important to remember that there's life after ransomware. It can feel devastating, but it doesn't have to define you. You can recover, learn from the experience, and become even more resilient in the future.
Absolutely. And remember, every time we take steps to protect ourselves, whether it's updating our software, backing up our data, or being more aware of phishing scams, we're making it harder for these attackers to succeed.
So to our listener, we hope this deep dive has given you a better understanding of the ransomware threat, both technically and psychologically. It's a complex issue, but by taking proactive steps and staying informed, you can significantly reduce your risk.
And remember, cybersecurity isn't just about technology, it's about people. It's about being aware, being prepared, and being resilient in the face of evolving threats.
Until next time, stay safe, stay informed, and stay curious.